I spent a lot of time in isolation in the early stages of my healing journey. My nervous system was very dysregulated. I was extremely disembodied and disassociated, and believed that the only place I could find peace and calm and resource was when I was alone. Welcome to the Embodied Woman podcast with me, Rebecca Wilson. If you believe that fertile energy, creative power, and embodied, resourced, nourished women will change the world, then you are in the right place. This is a space to support you to arrive deeper into relationship with yourself and your body, to explore the multifaceted experience of womanhood. It is my mission to guide women back into connection with their natural essence, to become the living embodiment of their true nature. Are you ready to join a community of women who are taking responsibility for our lives, our energy, women who are centered and rooted in ourselves, connected to our womb space, and deeply nourished on a cellular level? If so, let's begin into this week's episode. Welcome to the community, my love. Hello, gorgeous. Welcome to the Embodied Woman podcast. In today's episode, we're diving deep into a less informative and educational episode and more of a understanding and sharing of a part of my own journey, and also something that I have witnessed in many of the women that I have supported along the way. So I wanted to talk about this concept of cultivating resource in connection. But first of all, let's rewind a little bit and just allow me to frame this episode. So first of all, what does that mean to cultivate resource in connection? Well, it's the capacity and the ability and the knowledge and understanding to be able to feel resourced whilst we are in connection with something or someone else. But for the theme of this episode in particular, I really want to speak into cultivation of resource in connection with other humans. And this is a very strong thread on my own healing journey many years ago. After experiencing a lot of stress and overwhelm and traumatic experiences in my life, things that I felt overwhelmed by, dysregulated from, and many of those experiences I felt very disconnected from the world and other people. And I speak into that as I know that many of the women that I've spoken to along the journey have really resonated or spoken into that themselves, that they felt very isolated on their healing journey, or they'd experienced a pain or a trauma or some kind of stressful experience in life where they felt connection with other people was severed. And this can happen in lots of different ways for lots of different reasons. You know, my own personal journey was very much that I was very young when I experienced my first big trauma. I was 19 and my mum passed away. And, you know, upon reflection, my friends, they were all, 18, 19, 20 themselves. It was a very challenging time and a very big process for myself and my family to go through. And I think that, my friends didn't know how to support that situation. And equally, I didn't know how to educate or inform them to support me through that time of great loss and grief. So within that, the connection between myself and my friendship group really faded away and ended up in a disconnection. This led me on a big journey of really feeling like I could only cultivate resource when I was alone, because it wasn't safe for me to be vulnerable or open up or share with other people about my worries or stresses or emotions, as that leads to disconnection and loss of, friendship ultimately. Another process that happened for me within that time, and it has happened in other traumatic experiences that I've had in my life, is that I became naturally so dysregulated from the upset and the stress of that period of my life that my nervous system was massively dysregulated. I was ungrounded. I was unable to find regulation most of the time. And I know that is an experience that many people and many women share with me who have traversed through very challenging life experiences. They find it challenging when we're in that acute state of stress, or when we've been in chronic stress or upset for long periods of time. It can be really hard to be able to regulate the nervous system, to be able to regulate our emotional body. Somehow our sensitivity heightens and expands. We become sensitive to places, to people, environments. We almost feel like we've been blown open, and the only place that we can then begin to feel safe is in isolation, alone, where we don't have to be in interaction with anybody else and their thoughts, feelings, patterns. Because of course, like relationship connection with other is a complex experience in our journey as humans. And so often we can see when people have experienced these challenging times of stress or upset or pain and trauma in their lives, there can be a period of disconnection from their social groups, from their peers, from friends, from family. There can be a period of isolation where we spend a lot of time on our own, or maybe in connection to nature, but in our own company. Maybe we're learning or studying or healing. And I really understand and recognize that can be a very natural and needed part of our healing journey. Often what I experience myself and what I witness in many of the women that I support is that there can be a tendency to become stuck there, stuck in the feeling that we can only be resourced, and therefore we only feel safe because, of course, when we're cultivating resource in our body, we're cultivating safety. When we are alone or in isolation with our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and processes, and that it isn't safe to bring them forward into our connections and relationships and to people outside of us in our external world. Maybe because we feel that we will be denied, that we won't be seen or heard, or people don't have the capacity to meet us or understand us or listen and hold us. Maybe there's a fear that we're too much, that it's all too big, too much. And sometimes there's an unconscious patterning or fear that when we share those deep parts of ourselves with others, they often get reflected back and we truly hear or see our own experience. And if we're in any state of disassociation or numbness from the reality of what we're going through, then often we don't want to bring that forward into our community or our connections too. And there is a great part of this, there's a great aspect to having a season in withdrawal and isolation, tending to our own bodies and hearts, especially if, it's very challenging for us to regulate our nervous system around other people. And this is where we can really cultivate a great relationship with nature and really cultivate resource in that relationship, allow ourselves to be truly nourished by nature and that co-regulation that can happen there. But equally, there is a part of the journey that really calls us forward, stepping back into connection with others, whether that be friendship groups, communities, sports clubs, or new people. I see it often on retreats, women coming into retreat spaces after being on their healing journey and feeling very much alone in that for a long period of time, not having like-minded friends, people to confide in and share with. And they join retreat, they're stepping back into community and connection, and they are learning how to cultivate resource, become resourced from that. So we don't have to exist in a belief or a pattern that we can only be regulated and resourced when we are alone, and that our body and our nervous system cannot find regulation and resource and ease and groundedness whilst in connection with other people, or, in community or space with others. And understandably, it can be a bit more of a challenging process if our nervous system is dysregulated because of these challenging life experiences. And we're surrounded by lots of other people and they all have their own life experiences. And we become activated or triggered by our friends or our colleagues or the people that we're in relationships with, family members, partners. But it is truly where we're able to open and cultivate a sense of co-regulation with one another. And it is in that meeting of ourselves and the other or others that our bodies are able to relax into feeling seen, held, heard, witnessed, understood, expressed, enough, just as we are, moment to moment. On my own journey, I spent a lot of time in isolation in the early stages of my healing journey. My nervous system was very dysregulated. I was extremely disembodied and disassociated, and believed that the only place I could find peace and calm and resource was when I was alone. And that every time I was around other people, I would feel stressed. I would feel even more dysregulated. I would become aware of my patterns, my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions. And at times it was all feeling too much. And there is a need for some self-responsibility in that. And if we are feeling flooded, as we would say in a somatic term, flooded by emotion or feeling, it is important for us to be able to find some place where we can regulate and resource. And sometimes that is alone and it is with nature. But if we get stuck in that patterning of, I can only be resourced and regulated when I'm alone, then we are equally living in a state of closure and operating from a wound. And as humans, we are creatures of connection and community. We are meant to need one another, to be around one another. It is when we are in connection and community with other people that we, grow healthier bodies and immune systems and metabolic processes and microbiomes, because we're exposed to lots of other differences, and that allows us to be stronger. It also allows us to be stronger emotionally and spiritually too. It allows our energetic field to grow stronger. It allows us to learn and tap into our own wisdom that lives within and learn things from other people too. And it is in this space of connection that we truly can, as I said, co-regulate and therefore begin to learn to resource ourselves whilst being in connection with ourselves and others too. Now, sometimes this pattern of isolation can also come from a patterning or a history of being unable to hold our own boundary of our self when in relationship with another. If we've experienced any kind of enmeshment or codependency as a child in our parental relationships or our caregivers, if we have had no boundaries, we've been a people pleaser, overgiving, unable to express our needs or say no, then often what can be born from all of these wounds and these experiences is the belief and then the manifestation that you can only rely on yourself. You can only navigate life in a regulated way when you're looking after you and you're alone and not in deep, meaningful connections and relationships with other people. But that is mistaken and misplaced, because it is through the relationships we have with other people that we grow and evolve, even if it is slightly challenging at times. It allows us that ability to expand our awareness of ourselves and the world and life and our beliefs and our patterns and how we are operating from outdated programs and outdated stories and narratives, and operating from those younger aspects of self and the wounds that they may still be holding and carrying. But as we come back into connection with others, it is a beautiful opportunity to stay in connection with ourselves whilst also being in relationship with other. Often we can have a history of, and we can see this with particularly in the women that I've worked with who maybe have been in long-standing times of isolation, that they have either had a history in relationship of giving themselves fully to another, or a project or a business or a work endeavor, or their job, and have lost themselves completely. Or we become so attached to ourselves that we disconnect from the external world and all of the relationships completely too. And there's some place in the middle, which is this ever elusive place that we're all searching for, I am sure, where balance lives, where we are able to be with ourselves, connected to ourselves, understand and hear our emotions and needs fully, and be in connection to the other, hearing them, seeing them, witnessing them, and understanding them, and sharing those moments of understanding and knowing and connection together. And often this can be a challenge when we've been through our own healing or awakening journey, and the people around that surround us maybe haven't. We're not surrounded by those like-minded people that want to have those deep and meaningful conversations and connections and explore these new things that we have awoken into. And that is where I see such beautiful connections and resourcing happen when we do gather as a circle of women on retreat. This is always an opportunity to learn how to cultivate resource whilst being surrounded by a group of like-minded women who are deeply connected to themselves and you, where a space where you are heard and seen and witnessed and understood and acknowledged, where you get to share your full self and big emotional range, that nothing is too much or too little and everything is perfect as it is. And it is when we come into these safe and sacred spaces, surrounded by those who are of a similar energy or frequency or consciousness as us, that we can begin to repattern the belief that we need to be alone, that we have to do it all alone, and we need to isolate ourselves. And we begin to learn, and more importantly, our nervous system can begin to learn how to feel resourced whilst in connection with other people too. And this is one of the foundational intentions and manifestations that I create inside all of my programs and offerings. And most deeply, of course, in retreat, because we are there in person together. And it is a wonderful opportunity. And I'm always forever in awe of the beauty of what happens in these spaces as women gather and over a long weekend connect in ways where they become lifelong friends. And, some of the women that came on some of my very first retreats are still friends, visiting each other, traveling across the world to spend time together. And that is the beauty and the magic of these spaces that are created by us, all the women that step in. Because we are cultivating regulation and resource in ourselves and one another and the connections that we form, there's a deep safety of co-regulation that happens within us all. And that takes our body and our nervous system into the most beautiful healing state it can possibly be in, where all these old wounds and pains and stories and narratives naturally can begin to dissolve. And we're able to relax into the innate human experience of connection, community, and for us as women in sisterhood and circle. We have some new retreat dates, which I would love to share with you. We will be gathering on retreat on the 13th, Friday the 13th, the Goddess Day of September, until Monday the 16th of September in the Peak District, UK. It is a long weekend retreat, 4 days of soul, body, heart, womb, nourishment. And we are gathering the circle of women now. I will post the link for the retreat in the show notes of this episode, so you can scroll on down and click on there. This is the last retreat I have booked in my diary, as I am on my journey of preparation for conscious conception. And for after this date of September, I'm not sure when and how my calendar or my diary will be open for being able to host an in-person gathering like this. So if you're feeling the call, you've heard the whispers, the rumbles from deep within, or you know the power of this space and you're wanting to step back in to cultivate resource and connection with like-minded women walking the path of awakening, then this is your opportunity to do so. All the details are in the show notes, but for now, sending you so much love. Have a beautiful day. Take good care. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. If you loved this episode, please share it far and wide with your sisterhood and community. You can dive deep into all of my offerings via rebecca-wilson.com. Links to all offerings are below in the show notes of this episode. If you would love to support the podcast, please like, subscribe, download, and share the episodes so my work and this message can reach more women around the world. Remember, my love, you are here to live a life fully, deeply inhabiting your body and your divine nature. I am here to show you how. Hey love, I'm just dropping in to share that the doors are open for the waitlist for the next round of Embodied Woman Group Mentorship. This is a journey like no other, a deep dive into embodiment, somatic awareness, self-honoring and healing practices, the journey of remineralization, awakening your feminine energy and restoring the resources within your heart, body, wombs, cells, and overall vitality. This is my signature program, which launches twice a year. There are limited spaces for the intake. If you're feeling the call, head on down to the show notes in this episode, click the link and join the waitlist where you will receive more information soon. Hope you enjoyed the episode of this podcast. Sending you so much love. Have a beautiful, vital, and nourishing day.